Hello, 801. So, what a fun day today was. Alright, so I figured I would give you just a quick overview of what you should have understood from today's lesson, which was understanding the characteristics of a scatterplot and exploring it against real-life data. So if I'm looking through the lesson, I see that you had vocabulary, which was on independent and dependent variable. We already discussed that multiple times in class, but just remember that the independent determines the dependent variable. So the independent will always be your x coordinate or your x-axis, and the dependent will always be your y-axis or your y coordinate. So you should have learned about positive, negative, and no correlation scatter plots. So I'll just draw you a quick sketch of what you should have understood about those. So when we have a positive correlation, your data will be moving in an upwards direction from left to right. Notice that we're not exactly a clear straight line because this is usually based on real life data, and real life data doesn't come at a constant rate, but it does usually follow a trend if the data that you're exploring would relate to that. So we have our x-axis and our y-axis. So in a positive correlation, which is what this one is, you'll notice that as your x values increase, so do your y's. Okay, so I usually put that with it as well. So x increases, y increases. Okay, then we might have what we call a negative scatter plot or a negative correlation where our data from left to right is going in a downwards direction. Okay, so again, here's our x and our y. This would be an example of a negative correlation. And our data in a negative correlation, as the x values increase, your y values are decreasing. So we'll just put that here. Okay, and then the last one that you should have gone over was when there is no correlation, and that's just when your data is spread out all over, not showing any kind of trend. Again, we have x and y, so even as x is increasing, there's no trend happening with your dependent variable, your y value. So this is no correlation. And we would just say there's no trend in our data, or the data is not constant. Okay? So that's just that basic understanding there. Let me keep going in the lesson and see what's next. Okay, so then the lesson had you do the fill up the sink activity, which I got so many questions on. So what you were basically supposed to do was create a table. Your table should have been something like this. And your X was representing the seconds, and the Y was representing the inches filled in either the sink or the tub. So you would have created your independent values. I probably would have done like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you would have measured as you were filling up a sink or a tub the inches that it was filling up after these second intervals. So I know that that might have been tough for some of you, so I said you could have made up the data if you were just like predicting what would have happened. So for example, maybe after 1 inch, 1 second it was 1 inch filled, 2 seconds maybe, I don't know, it was 3, right? And then 3 seconds, maybe it was 3.5, I don't know, whatever, I'm just making up numbers. Okay, and then what you were instructed to do was to then go to the Desmos app and just keep this Desmos website. Keep this in mind in case we ask you to make another graph. So you go to desmos.com, you'll see this like box that says start graphing or something like that. It's like orange color, kind of like this color, and you click on it. And then on the left side, you're able to put your coordinates. Now, I noticed that you have to put your parentheses for it to like pick up correctly. And then once you put your coordinate in, over here is your graph. And it actually plots the point for you on the graph. And as you keep going, you'll see those come up on your graph. And then what you do is there's this key that kind of looks like this with an arrow. And that is for you to save your graph. So you click on it, And when I clicked on it, I clicked export graph. And when I exported it, it was able to become what is called a PNG file. And then since it was a PNG file, I was able to then attach it to the assignment that was due for you guys today, which most of you guys figured out after a couple of test trials. So I was happy to see that. I hope that that kind of clarified a little bit for you. It was just more like an engagement activity and to see if you guys could figure out, again, the graphing website in case we need you to graph others. So as I keep going, after you did that, there were 4 questions you were supposed to answer on the stream. These were them. Some of you did, some of you still have not. So if you haven't, go to the stream and make sure you answer those. Don't forget to put the numbers next to the questions and your responses. Okay, the next part of the lesson just takes you through what I already showed you, your positive correlation, real life example, your negative correlation, real life example, and then no correlation with, again, a real life example. So then this next part was for you to just fill in the trend that would be happening to your independent and dependent variable and what type of correlation that would cause. So again, if you remember that in a positive, oh, you can't even see me, positive, as the x increases, so does y. In a negative, as the x increases, y decreases. And in no correlation, I don't know why I spelled that one out and the other ones I didn't, but whatever. It doesn't change. Okay, there's no trend to your data. That's what I would say. No trend. I would say no, like, pattern. Okay, these are all your options for those. Okay, so if you use this understanding, you should be able to figure out the sentences that were provided in the lesson. So for example, it says, as the height blank, shoe size blank, this is a blank correlation. So I would maybe fill in, as the height increases, your shoe size would also increase, because if you're taller, usually that indicates that you have a larger foot. So since these are both increasing, then it would be a positive correlation. And then we can see that in the answer slide that follows. So these were just for you to go through, practice. The answer keys were provided to you so that you could check your work against the answers. A couple of multiple choice questions as well to relate back to what we did earlier. A few of you were asking about what makes something strong or weak. I don't know why that question came up in this lesson, because it does come up in the next lesson, but a strong correlation means that your points are very close together, and then a weak correlation means that they are more spread apart. I'm trying to find an example to show you just so that I can clarify that. I know Xavier had asked. So this would be a strong correlation because the data points are very close together. They're not exactly the same, but they are close together. They almost form like a line, not exactly, but they're close. It's more so when they're spread out. This again would be strong because they're close together. When they're weak, they're more spread out. I'm trying to see if there's one here. Not really. I don't really like those examples to support that, but the following lesson will explain that to you more, okay? And then for the last part, you just had to go back to the stream, and there was 3 questions we wanted you to relate back to after you went through the lesson and did the filling the sink activity. You were supposed to answer those 3 questions as well. So if you didn't do those, make sure you do. Make sure you got your attendance in, and make sure that you also did the homework assignment and uploaded your graph from Desmos, but I said that earlier. Okay, I hope this helped and clarified any misunderstandings. I will be back tomorrow to help you with the next lesson. All right, bye.